Hi, Carl here, and 7 things that I really wouldn't be doing over the winter months to your Japanese maples. So I am conscious that with the transition from autumn, which is perhaps one of the most spectacular times for these trees, here's a nice Jordan, a Suraswanum. There's one in the ground here too, just looking lovely. That it can be sort of a bit of a scary time because you're treated to all these fantastic colours, and the trees sort of look a lot worse. There's a Sakazuki, for example, an absolute classic. And suddenly you're left with a tree that looks like this in a few weeks or even a few days. Things can change quite radically. So I just want to, people to rest assured that this is perfectly fine. They're deciduous trees. This is what they do. And unbelievably, this tree seemed to be full of leaves, and 3 days later there was one left. It sometimes works that way. But if you look quite closely at your trees, what you'll see is little nodules at the end there. You can just about see those, I think. We're going closer. And at the ends, you can see those little nodules, and they're ready to make the new leaves and branches next year. So actually, that's all a good sign, really, and shows the trees absolutely fine. Here, this little fella here, this Orium, looks in a right old state. It looks like it's dying. It looks a bit dramatic. But again, if you kind of zoom in close, you can see at the tips there's some really lovely little red, and they're quite obvious on this tree, little nodules going in there. And this is all showing that all is well, ready for next year. So first tip really is don't leave weeds. It seems a bit silly to leave leaf litter and weeds over your trees. So it's a really good idea to pluck them out there and just remove them, to be honest with you. These trees won't be growing over winter, but weeds still might to some degree. So it just seems prudent to get rid of that potential danger there. Just noting on the pot there's a load of moss and stuff on the outside. I don't mind that. I mean, these are ceramic porous pots. They will get wet and grow moss, but to me it just all adds the character. So in a similar way for this tree here, there's quite a lot of leaf litter sort of accumulating, and this can affect some trees more than the others. It depends on the habit, really. But if you've got a load of sort of leaf litter stuck in the tree, then it sounds like it's a good idea to just remove it. If not now, really, but towards the sort of midwinter, because you don't want anything sort of rotting there or sort of causing a problem. So it just seems prudent just to quickly remove the last bits of leaves and foliage there, and just sort of give it a tidy, I suppose, really. Worth doing this to this tree as well, because this is Sangukaku, and one of its absolutely key features is that it can look absolutely brilliant in winter with that lovely pink bark. And if it gets cold, the bark just improves, really. It looks really, really nice. I think if it got some litter at the base of the plant, there around the mulch that you put on top, I wouldn't worry too much about that, but I'd just give it a tidy up and do a bit of, not spring cleaning, but autumn cleaning, I suppose, and just sort of give the tree a bit of a dressing. Again, if you've got a bit of leaves on the ground, then nothing wrong with that, actually. So then on to another massive tip, really. I wouldn't leave it. I'd move these trees now. So this particular tree has suffered, this Katsura, for quite a lot of drying out, wind damage, sun scorch. It's just been in the wrong place this year. And with the best will in the world, I'm not going to remember by next year how this year has gone. Well, I suppose I might. I've got the video, so I could review it. But in reality, I think what I'll be doing is moving this somewhere better, somewhere with more shelter, ready for next year. And so I don't have the same repeat problem, really. So a big thing not to do is, it's tempting, but don't put your acers indoors. Don't cover them. You really don't need to. These trees are trees. They need to see the cold of winter. That affects the enzymes in their system. It affects the metabolism. They need to be cold in winter to go dormant and stay dormant. And likewise, they need to warm up in the summer and the spring. These are pictures from Batford Arboretum in the UK. This might reassure you. These trees have been here for decades. They're absolutely fine. So whatever you don't feed your maples this time of year, these were fed in late March here in the UK. So that's kind of like springtime, really. And that's just what they need. They need the nitrogen, they need those minerals, they need those nutrients to sustain them all summer. And, you know, that's what's happened. This tree has been absolutely lovely all summer, really. The thing is, though, what we don't want to do is encourage too much growth into the late autumn and the winter months, because that new soft tender growth, if there's suddenly a frost, is going to get destroyed, basically, that you'll get an awful lot of dieback on them. So they kind of need to start petering out. This has probably worked really well this year, particularly in the UK, because it's been an incredibly mild summer that's gone on, and it stayed warm very much into October. So naturally these trees have slowed down. I'm very pleased about that. Honestly, it's been such a crazy climate year that if I'd fed them a load in the end of summer or whenever, they might have sort of put on a bit of a growth spurt, and we really don't want that. So go easy on the fertilizer. You really don't need it. And very importantly, if you repot these plants, you are actually adding fertilizer again, and that's not what you want to be doing. So we'll come onto that in a second. So in this little section, I've actually bought 2 new trees. Of course, I said I wouldn't, but there we go. I've done it again. Lovely little trees. Really happy to get hold of them. I don't mind buying trees any time of year, but I think it's important to treat them accordingly to their needs. And I'm not going to be repotting these. They're going to go dormant in a minute. They're absolutely fine the way they are. Why would I disturb them? Why would I give them a load more nitrogen and nutrients, all the rest of it, by repotting them when they're absolutely, you know, not in harm's way? So what I've decided to do here in this little section is show you what I've done, and I've decided to leave them in the pots they're already in, but to make them a little bit more attractive and put them into something that means they're not going to get blown over. So I can't really recommend doing this because it's the first time I've tried it, but that's what we're about, really, trying out new things. So I've just got a little trough here that wasn't really doing anything. There's drainage holes in the bottom, so that's really, really important because you don't want to get everything too waterlogged. And essentially I'm going to put some more pebbles at the bottom as well to sort of make sure they sort of go to the level height with the top, and infill that with some more pebbles too. And as you can see, it's not an unattractive little thing, really. And then stand those in a nicely sheltered area under my sort of in a corner of the garden there, and they should be really happy. And then we'll talk about repotting them in the spring when they're ready to sort of grow and fill the next size pot, if that makes sense. And just onto that note, really, this is what can happen if plants get waterlogged, their root system gets destroyed. And for those that watch my video on sort of plant repotting, this is a little seedling that has entirely been rescued, I think. I mean, fingers crossed on that one. It's grown some lovely new growth because I've downsized the pots. Whereas ones that I picked a sensible size pot in the first place, they've done really well. So if you need to downsize to get back to a sensible size pot, that's worth doing. And of course, you're not adding any compost, you're in fact taking it away. And really just to say that it's great having drainage in your pots, we all know that. But if you then put them on some mud, on some clay soil, whatever, and they land up sort of embedding themselves in that water's going nowhere. So I'm lucky my garden's sort of full of pebbles and slate and stuff like that. If not, use something to put the pots onto, little pot holders, just raise them off the ground a bit to make sure they're going to drain off nicely, really.